sometimes you need more control over the database schema. For example, you may want to overwrite the name of a table, or you may want to add an index to a couple of columns and so on. Let me show you how to do this. So let's press Command and T on Mac or Control and T on Windows and jump to our customer class. Okay. Now in this class, we're going to define metadata. So inside this class, after our fields, we're going to add an inner class called meta. The name of this class is important. So this is where we define metadata about this model. Now, here we have a bunch of options. If you simply search for Django model metadata on this page, you can find all the available options here. So we have DB underline table for specifying the table name. We can also set the ordering that will be used by default when querying objects. We can also create indexes and so on. So let's look at a couple of examples. So back to our code. Here I'm going to set DB underline table to store underline customers. So here I'm using a plural name. Now, even though this is possible, it's not something that I personally recommend. Because if you want to use plural names, then you would have to set the table name for every model in your project. I find it unnecessary. The whole reason we use Django is because it comes with a lot of conventions that we can follow to quickly build applications. If you want to constantly override these conventions and customize things, maybe Django is not the right tool for you. That's just my personal opinion. So here we can set the table name. We can also create indexes. So we set indexes to an array of index objects. To create an index object, we can use models.index. Now here we set a keyword argument called fields. We set it to an array of strings. So we can add an index on last name and first name columns. Now, if you're not familiar with indexes, basically we use them to speed up our queries. I cover them in detail in my SQL course in case you want to learn more. So we have made a couple of changes. Now it's time for what? It's time for creating a migration. So save the changes. Back to the terminal, we run Python manage.py make migrations. Great. So Django created a new migration file, but it couldn't come up with a good name for this file because we have mixed two different types of operations here. On the one hand, we're creating an index. On the other hand, we are renaming a table. So it's best if you don't mix up different types of operations. Write a bit of code to solve a specific problem, create a migration, and then move on to the next problem, okay? So I'm going to leave this file as is. Now let's run this migration. So Python manage.py migrate. Good. Now let's open up our database one more time. So here in the Explorer panel, here's our database. I'm going to refresh. Good. Now look at the name of our table. Now we have a plural name here. But look, this is not consistent with other tables. That's why I personally think we should stick to the default convention in Django. So in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to undo the last migration.